During this time of year, you've probably heard a lot about fire cider. Well, recently my Aunt Terry recommended that I make a video on fire cider, so today we're going to take a look at some of the health benefits associated with fire cider, and then we'll dive into making it and we'll briefly talk about how to store it. Depending on how much research you've already done, you may be wondering what fire cider is. Fire cider is a tonic many use to treat colds and boost immunity. I really wanted to say this is a sweet, spicy, sour tonic, but as we get into the ingredient list, you'll see that this is something that you can really modify to be however you'd like it to be. I really like spicy, so I found that I like to add more peppers than what you would typically find in a recipe. So same thing with the sweet, you can add as much sweet or as little as you'd like. Diving into the health benefits. Now, I'm not a doctor, but many people claim there are a tremendous amount of health benefits associated with fire cider. Based on the ingredient list, I will tell you I am 100% a believer. Together, these ingredients are antiviral, antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory. They contain vitamin C. They help to relieve or decrease pain, nausea, anxiety, digestive issues, nasal congestion. They can improve brain function, memory, collagen production. There are so many health benefits that we truly could create an entire video just going through each of those. I have read that people with diabetes should use caution when it comes to fire cider, and of course, due to its potency and potential spiciness, you wouldn't want to give this to a toddler or a cat or a puppy dog or a goat, or a sheep, or a chicken, or whatever other animals or creatures you have living with you. If you're new to fire cider and you've just started researching different recipes online, you've probably noticed that the ingredient list is all over the place. And that's a good thing, but can also be a little bit frustrating because it makes it difficult to decide where to start. In concluding on a recipe of my own, I researched in detail 10 of the most highly rated recipes I could find online. From there, I broke all of the ingredients down into 3 separate categories. The first category consists of the base ingredients, or what I would say would be the required ingredients. And 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 of these recipes included these base ingredients: garlic, onion, ginger, horseradish, hot peppers, apple cider vinegar, and raw honey. The second category would be the recommended ingredients. And 5 out of 10 through 8 out of 10 of the recipes that I researched included these ingredients: turmeric, orange slices, lemon slices, and black peppercorns. And the third category would be the optional ingredients, which 4 out of 10 or less of the 10 recipes I reviewed included these ingredients: anise, cinnamon, parsley, rosemary, thyme, and elderberries. If you're adding elderberries to your fire cider, you could use fresh, frozen, or even dehydrated or dried elderberries. If you're using the dried elderberries, just rehydrate them with a small amount of boiling water before adding them to your jar. Today we're going to make 2 batches of fire cider. Both batches will contain all of the ingredients from category 1, the base ingredient list, and category 2, the recommended ingredient list. In one of the batches though, I'm going to also add, at special request from Aunt Terry, elderberries, which are listed in the 3rd category of optional ingredients. It's important to note that if you don't have all of these ingredients, that's perfectly fine. The beautiful thing about fire cider is that it's incredibly flexible when it comes to the different ingredients and also the quantity. So if you don't have a large onion, for example, use a small onion or whatever you happen to have. It doesn't have to be a yellow onion or a white onion. It could also be a red onion. You can substitute, if you don't have ginger or ginger root, for example, you could substitute that with ginger powder or ground ginger. And then the same thing with turmeric root. Substitute it with turmeric powder if you don't have the fresh root. I've listed some suggestions for different substitutions in the description, so take a look at that in case there's something that you don't have. But of course, you can also omit different ingredients. Just try to stick to that base list at least, if you possibly can. Some of those ingredients are fairly simple to get a hold of. So try to stick to that if you can, but keep in mind that it's okay to be somewhat flexible with this recipe. Let's get started. First, we're going to rinse all of the fresh ingredients, and we can slice the lemon and the orange and then set that aside. Next, we want to peel all of the root vegetables, keeping in mind that you have to be careful with the turmeric. When handling it, it's going to change the color of anything that it touches, except for glass, of course. It will wash off of glass and stainless, but anything plastic or your hands even will change a bright orange or bright yellow as soon as it makes contact with the turmeric. From here, we can shred, we can dice, we can slice, we can mince all of these ingredients with the exception of the orange and the lemon, of course. But my preference is to run everything through the food processor, and that just is a much more efficient way to go. My food processor is bright yellow now, but I got done with this pretty quick. I have everything washed and diced, and I'm just going to start putting these items through the food processor, starting with the garlic. Next, I'll put in the ginger root, horseradish root, turmeric root, hot peppers, including the seeds, and onion. Before I forget, I want to add the elderberries to one of these jars, and then we can go ahead and proceed with adding in our orange and lemon slices. Then we'll layer in some of the minced ingredients and continue layering until these jars are full. As you're layering, be sure to not pack the ingredients down too tightly. We're going to add some black peppercorns, and then we're going to pour apple cider vinegar over the top until the jars are full. After the jars are full, we want to use a debubbler tool to try to release any air pockets that are sitting in the jars, and then we're going to top the jars off with additional apple cider vinegar if needed to make sure that those ingredients are covered. Now we're going to place on the lids. If you're using a metal lid, be sure to put a piece of parchment paper or wax paper between the metal lid and the jar just to keep the vinegar from etching that metal. If you are paying close attention, you probably noticed that we didn't add any honey to the jars. That was intentional. We don't want to add the honey until after the tonic has had an opportunity to steep. After we've placed the lids, we're going to store these in a dark, cool place for 3 to 6 weeks. You'll want to shake the jars daily, and then of course within 2 or 3 days you can start taste testing and you'll be able to see how those flavors are starting to develop. Once you hit the 3-week mark, you can decide if that flavor is delicious to you, and if so, you can go ahead and bottle it at that point in time, or you can allow those flavors to continue developing if you feel like it needs more time. After the fire cider has had an opportunity to steep, we're going to strain out the solid ingredients using cheesecloth, and with the remaining liquid, we're going to add in our honey. Add the honey in with small batches, stir it up or shake it until you reach the desired taste for you. The solid ingredients remaining, you can either discard them or you can use them to flavor soups or stews. If you're storing directly in this jar or maybe in a bottle, go ahead and place on your lid, and then you can store this for up to 6 months in a cool, dark place such as a pantry, up to 18 months in the refrigerator, or 2 to 3 years if you vacuum seal it and freeze it. If you decide to go the vacuum seal route, you'll need to first freeze it in some sort of a plastic container. Pop it out of the plastic container after it's frozen, put it into your vacuum seal bag, vacuum seal it, label it, date it, and then place it in your freezer for long-term storage. When preparing this batch, I ended up with 3 quarts of the liquid and solid ingredients. And then when I strained out the solid ingredients, I was left with about 3/4 of that amount. So a little over 2 quarts, probably 2 quarts and a half a pint or so. So keep that in mind when you're preparing this. It may look like you have 3 quarts, but you have to remember that you're going to be straining out those solid ingredients. If this is your first time making fire cider, I recommend not using a quart or a 1.5 pint jar, but instead use some small 1/2 pint jars. And what you can do is mix in all of your base and your recommended ingredients, and then add in some optional flavors into each of those smaller jars, or add more hot peppers, or add in ground turmeric, even if you've used the turmeric root, and just play around with the different flavors to find something that works best for you. So now we've created all of this delicious fire cider. What do we do with it? Each day you can drink 1 to 2 tablespoons straight, or if it's too strong or too potent, you can dilute it with water. You can make a salad dressing with it. You can add it to soups and stews. And then of course, keep in mind that this could make a great gift for friends and family as well. Honestly, this fire cider is so delicious. I prefer to drink it straight. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy.